I'm heading back to Red Rocks, just outside of Las Vegas for a climbing trip, and I'm so looking forward to it. I couldn't wait and decided to try and replicate that environment at scale. This is what I'm going to try and create. Also, there are a few pools that gather here and there, so maybe I'll give one a go. They have a kind of green hue to them, so that will be easy to capture. I recently got a cool top hot wire foam cutter kit for just under $30 and had plenty of a sheet of 1/2 inch pink insulation foam from Home Depot that I used to try my blast craters. Okay, unboxing. What do we get with our purchase? Well, there's the main handle that you plug in and then you choose what head you want to deploy. There's a big 18-inch wide head with a wire stretched between the prongs, and there's a nice little stand so you can set it aside and not have the wire touching anything. There's also a single thicker prong with a looped end and another smaller one that is just a straight prong. And they also threw in a felt pen and some sort of palette knife as well. Not sure what any of these are for. And there's a very generous spool of spare wire for the main head as well. So I guess I can count on it snapping because there's a lot of it. Anyway, let's have a practice dabble and experiment with what these things can do. The straight prong. Just dab in, melt some nice grooves and lines. Nice, I like that. The curved one, this might be good to get into the main flat surfaces, but the big one, ooh, this works really well. I think this is gonna be my main man.
You're my main man. Woo!
Right, let's get cracking. First up, cutting out a few rough circles of foam that I can stack up and glue together. I made them a little bigger each time, so they mushroom up as I go. Warming up the hot glue gun, I started snapping them together, and I added a longer table that can extend out to the side, and then another smaller piece to create a little ledge on top of that. Now that I have my raw block, time to act as the passage of time, the power of oceans, the erosion of desert winds, and winter flash floods. Anywho, countless millennia in this case will be simulated with a hot wire on foam. Just dabbing the wire horizontally to the foam creates an excellent series of grooves and layers. I worked all the way around and carved out some sections to get a more flowing line rather than those angular chunky corners, because sandstone tends to be more smooth and rounded out. Sometimes the deeper grooves cause the foam to form into some burned black craggy strands. Some of these you can just extract by hand, others needed a utility knife to carve them out. Okay, on to some other formations. Another small little rising block, and then another pair of rising columns that are joined by another table to create the start of a nice arch-like structure, like the ones we climbed when we popped over to Moab. And then a couple of extra pieces to make it seem less flat and banal. Right, hot glue gun to connect everything, and then breaking out the wire to start carving it into the rough shape so I can then hold the wire horizontally to get my weathered compacted layers. This time I'm going a little less distinct for this one. Then, remembering the huecos, it's a type of rock formation, it's Spanish for hollow. Anyway, I thought about the head with the curved end. This was perfect for reaching in and carving out several nice huecos in the other structures. So that the slab upper surface isn't perfectly flat, I extended a utility knife out and sawed away a little to make it a little more uneven and lumpy. And now another one. This one will have a larger foot and a table about the same size as that foot with a nice connective column off to one side, and in with the wire to start etching in the compressed layers of sandstone. Right, with a few pieces created, on to painting. Oxidization of the iron minerals in the sediments created a distinct red hue for the rocks in Nevada, but I'll be using red acrylic. A squirt of red and some Mod Podge, stir it up and apply a solid layer over all the formations. While these dry, time to have a go at making my desert pool. A larger foot and a couple of other layers on top, and then heating up the wire, I created the grooves all the way around the piece. Breaking out the looped thicker head, I discovered it's excellent for excavating a nice shallow pool. Carving around, I got a really nice weathered pit. Cool. Giving this its first layer of Mod Podge and red, and then everything gets a second coat, not only to get into all the deep grooves and crevices, but also to really bring out the colour and give me a good base coat. Once this was nice and dry, a squirt of yellow into the Mod Podge mixture and stir it up. A dip with my dry brushing brush, and I started with a generous application all over the formation, catching the raised grooves and formations and corners and all the other bits and pieces. Another squirt of yellow, stir it up, and then a little more frugal dry brush over everything. Now, while this dries, let's get the pool going. As from previous experience, this takes a while. A squirt of Vallejo water texture acrylic and a little touch of Army Painter Treant Green. And then I started dabbing it in to get the more opaque depths of the pond. Once it was dry, more water texture with a little less green, and I applied a thin layer. You have to work in thin layers and let them dry completely between applications, because otherwise the acrylic can tend to crack. If this does happen, you can repair it with an application of the same acrylic. Get it to the similar opacity and dab it in and let it dry to heal the fracture lines and splits. Another few layers, working my way up to clear, and then finally a single thin layer with a touch of green to get that hint of pond scum or icky film that forms on these pools, which, when you've been climbing in 100-degree desert heat all day, still serves as enough of a deterrent to stop you dipping any body part in it to cool off. And here we are, a ragged arch of sandstone supported by two wind-carved pillars. A Hueco-riddled tower of rock with a broad ledge jutting from one side. A smaller, inverted cone of rock, more lightly eroded than the others. And another smaller structure with a broad footprint and another table of textured rock on top. And a low slab of stone where the carved indentation has collected a pool of rainwater that is starting to succumb to stagnation or algae. And here's the whole collection together and infested with tyranids that are using the lower levels of rock to ascend and access the loftier formations in their never-ending thirst for fresh biomass. Conclusion. The foam cutter is bloody excellent. I'm intrigued to try it for other ideas. But for duplication of weathered sandstone out of pink foam, it's almost perfectly designed for it. I mean, check it. Here's the real deal. And here's the terrain. Not too shabby. And it's quick as well. You could crank out a whole table of desert terrain in a day. Very happy with how this came out. And now, off to the real stuff, into the sun. Gonna be fun.